Coming to you live and direct from our News First studios here in Colombo. Usually on Newsline we speak about political issues in the world, or more frequently we speak about political issues in the world. But today, the biggest issue that the entire world is facing is the outbreak of the coronavirus. And yesterday, shocking news for all Sri Lankans, as one patient who contracted the coronavirus was reported here from Sri Lanka, a Chinese national who had arrived in the country on the 19th of this month. She's currently being treated at the infectious disease hospital in Colombo. This morning, to discuss the issues surrounding the coronavirus, advise the general public on how you and I should respond to this situation, we've got Dr. Deepa Gamage, consultant epidemiologist from the Ministry of Health. A very good morning, doctor, and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Dr. Deepa Gamage, I believe there is a little bit of misinformation obviously spreading about this virus across the country. A lot of people really don't know what this virus is. If you could give us a brief introduction on what exactly this virus is.
Yes, this virus, nobody knows what is this virus.
Still.
But that is why it is labeled as novel coronavirus.
Okay.
It is labeled as 2019 novel coronavirus. This coronavirus, we should know what is this coronavirus. This coronavirus is a family of viruses. I mean, some kind of a type of viruses. It causes infections among animals.
Right.
So this different types of infections among animals can be caused by these coronaviruses. But from time to time, this virus can infect humans also when humans have a close contact with animals. So we have this kind of experiences before also globally. So MERS coronavirus in 2012.
Okay.
So that's in Saudi Arabia. That MERS coronavirus infection came from camels. So when they detect, this has identified that people have a close contact with camels.
Okay.
And then infection came from them.
There were
And
reports
before
there were reports that eating these animals, the Chinese people consuming a wide range of animals, had caused this virus. Is that
rather than the consumption, when they have a close contact with live animals?
Okay.
That is very likely.
Right.
But consumption, when we consume, you handle them.
You cook them.
Cook them means the raw meat, raw milk, you
Right.
can handle. In that situation also, you can get exposed to this kind of viruses. And our other example for your question you have asked is SARS.
Okay.
During SARS also another example of this coronavirus infection. So that infection identified, it has come to humans from civet cat.
Okay.
So this kind of previous experiences also there globally. So this is, I think, another time we are exposing to some kind of coronavirus infection. Probably there is a suspicion that it has come from some kind of animal.
But still, the kind of animal is not certain.
Not certain. They are doing the investigations. So because it has originated from a fisheries market,
right,
together with other animals. There were some other animals also. So those who have got the infection first were people who were working in that market.
Right.
So because of that, there is a probability that some association with contact with some kind of animal
could have caused the virus.
So then now later on it transmits from human to human.
Right. Of course, our viewers out there might be having a number of questions regarding a coronavirus, and of course you can send us those questions on the number that is being displayed on your screen right now. And Dr. Deepa would be more than obliged, I believe, to answer all of these questions. Doctor, getting back into our discussion, of course, although it originated from the Wuhan province in China, it has now been reported in a number of countries, including Sri Lanka. How deadly is this virus, which is, I think, the million-dollar question right now?
Yes. This how deadly is the virus means how early sometimes that also contributes for this deadliness means the fatality.
How soon you can identify?
If the disease or the disease epidemiology, I mean, so how this disease progress, so and the treatment options, and how the care can be provided, all these are contributed for the death of a patient and the treatment of the treatment and the recovery. So considering all these things, in the situation in China, they have identified maybe the case fatality around 4-5 probably. So exactly it is too early to say what is the case fatality of this disease.
But the highest number of fatalities, of course, have been again reported from China, 82 fatalities, and this morning it was reported that the first fatality in Beijing also has been reported. Doctor, moving from a global perspective of this issue to a more local one. Now, we've identified a patient in Sri Lanka who has contracted the coronavirus. But what are the steps being taken to quarantine this patient? And also, on the sidelines of that question, I'd like to direct another one to you. Students were flown in from Wuhan province and Sichuan province in China. Sri Lankan students, they have been flown in through a special Sri Lankan Airlines flight, and they have landed in the country. What is the exact procedure that will be followed when these students are put back into society or received into the country?
Okay, actually these students, those who are coming today, are not from these risk areas.
Right.
So these Wuhan and the provinces you are mentioning are high risk areas.
Right.
High risk in the sense of Chinese cases reported provinces. These students are coming from actually from other areas.
Right.
But they will be screened. Everything is now identified, the procedure. So they will be screened and their travel histories will be taken, and they will be asked about the possible exposures, and based on that the decisions will be taken, who will be separately quarantined, who will be asked to stay at home without coming to the community. So actions will be taken. The health team is working at the airport at the moment.
Also, Doctor, regarding the end of the Chinese New Year, now we've here in Sri Lanka, we've got about 10,000 Chinese nationals working in Sri Lanka, and now almost all of this, or a vast majority of this 10,000 Chinese workers flew back to China for the Chinese New Year. The New Year holiday has been extended by 3 years in a bid to control the spread of the virus. However, inevitably in the coming few days or in the coming week, these Chinese nationals all will be returning back to Sri Lanka. Is the health ministry, is the coordination among the authorities in Sri Lanka adequate to screen all of these Chinese nationals who are entering Sri Lanka?
In the airport, that screening facilities has been established already, but we have started it little before also. We have already informed to these places where foreign workers employed to identify those who are returning to the country within last 1 month and report them to your nearest medical officer of health. Health area.
So this is not just Chinese nationals?
Not only the Chinese. We wanted to pay attention to all the foreign workers, nationals employed in these working places. So we have the surveillance system has already been established, and there is another expanded program we have identified to separately giving the responsibilities and everything. Tomorrow there is another big meeting we have organized throughout the country. We will get them down, and there is another plan of action to implement because of this emergency situation.
Next, Doctor, I would like to move on to a little bit of advice to the general public. Now, we see when we air footage of areas that has seen the outbreak of the coronavirus, be it in China or even in countries where just a few cases have been reported, many of these people have resorted to wearing face masks. And in Sri Lanka too, after the report of the first case, actually from even before that, me personally, when I went outside to certain malls, certain public places in the country, I saw a lot of people wearing face masks. How good is this precaution, and is it really necessary right now in Sri Lanka?
Okay. Before answering to your question, I like to pay your attention to other preventive measures also. Now, face mask is everybody's wearing that as a preventive measure. to protect them.
Okay.
So this is a respiratory tract infection.
Okay.
So spreading from one person to another, from the infected person to another person.
Right.
So respiratory tract infection, this coronavirus infection is mostly transmitting through droplets.
Okay.
So when they sneeze, so respiratory infection means main signs and symptoms are the sneezing, coughing, nasal congestion, sore throat. So during the sneezing and coughing, these small droplets can spread to the air.
Okay.
But it will go about 1 meter, 1 to 2 meters, because these droplets have a small weight.
Right.
And it will drop and it will remain on the surfaces for some time. So when the other people touch these places, if it comes directly to your face within 1 meter radius, 1 meter distance,
Okay.
you can get the infection from the infected person.
Okay.
Or else, if it is deposited, these droplets deposited on a surface, when you touch it and when you come your hands into your face and face to the nose and the mouth or the eyes, it can spread to you.
Right.
So the main preventive measure is wash your hands with soap and water.
Okay.
So wash hands means it is not just to put your hand under the water and take it out, but you have to wash it thoroughly with soap, maybe 20 seconds minimum. So
Okay.
you have to rub it and wash it.
Use of a hand sanitizer?
Hand sanitizer is okay.
Okay.
Sorry. And frequent hand washing. When you go out, when come back, when you handle something, frequent hand washing
Okay.
works well. And the other thing is, if you have any signs and symptoms, if anybody is having any signs and symptoms, use the tissue, facial tissue or handkerchief and throw it properly. Not to keep it everywhere and throw it properly.
By signs and symptoms, you mean some respiratory disease,
sneezing, coughing, then use a facial tissue.
Okay.
Or else you can use your inner side of the elbow.
Okay.
Like this, I will show it. Like
Okay.
This is like this. Cover your nose, sneeze and the cough from the inner side of your elbow. And
people usually cover their face like this with the inner side of the palm.
Inner side of the palm. When you touch it somewhere, you will spread it to others.
Right.
So that is not actually good place to cover your
nose
and the sneeze and the cough.
Right.
So best is this one, like
your
this.
Elbow. Okay.
Inner side of the elbow. And your other question is the face mask. If you wear it correctly to prevent some kind of close contacts, if you wear with the patient reported with signs and symptoms, yes, some protection may be there, but if you wear it incorrectly, incorrect practice, I mean when you wear it, you feel some discomfort, then you frequently touch it. You take it down, take it up, and sometimes remove it and wear it again. So sometimes children try to keep it in the bag and again wear it on the second day. So that is not quite good.
Even if it's not one of these temporary masks, you know, there are face masks that are made out of different sorts of materials, and they look as if they're permanent masks. There are two kinds. So even a mask that seems to be...
There is nothing called permanent masks.
That can be used more than once. Are you saying that a mask can only be used once?
Most of the surgical masks, I mean, the people, those who are wearing, those are not a
just
reusable.
One-time use.
One-time use, most of the things.
Okay.
So then when you touch it, you are touching the surfaces, and when you are always moving it here and there, then you will carry in the infections, not only this coronavirus, but other infections as well to your nose. So then correct practice has to be there if you are wearing, but at the moment, there is no need for wearing the face mask in the general public.
Okay.
But if that situation comes, then we will tell that it is the time to wear a face mask. But for the moment, there is no such risk at the moment.
Doctor, you were speaking about preventive measures. I was also reading up a bit about this, and since it's, I read about a part where it said that if you have a dry throat, it'll be easier for the virus to contract. Are these information that are spreading?
There is no such dry throat can infect easily. There is no such thing like that.
Okay.
But viruses can, any viruses can infect people if they have a risk conditions. So risk conditions
Other
means
diseases.
Underlying other diseases, very old people, elderly people, very young people, their immunity is not that good, in the sense less than two years, over 65 years, those who are having diabetes, comorbidity means other diseases, and those who are having some long-term steroids and suppress their immune system, and some people are suffering from low immune diseases. So that kind of conditions, infections, viruses can quickly get into their body and can make this condition worse. Complications can develop.
Right.
But healthy people, normal viruses can easily they develop the immunity from their body, because we have an immune system. So some viruses like influenza, easily they develop the immunity in the body and can respond to that.
Right.
But this coronavirus, nobody knows how this virus behaves and how the immune system can handle on that. This coronavirus also, some people can just get the normal respiratory infection and can it go off. The normal immune system can work well. But some people can get worse. Because of that, better to get precautions. I mean the good habits, adhere to good habits of hand hygiene and respiratory etiquette, and so prevention is better than cure. So we have to adhere to that and adhere to good practices, good habits.
And these adherence to good habits is not something that is limited only during an outbreak of a deadly virus.
It is good for preventing other communicable diseases also.
But also, Doctor, I think there is a bit of fear among the general public regarding this virus. Given the fact that 3,000 people have already been affected in China, once you are affected by the virus, how deadly is this virus in reality?
Actually, that is what, so far it has been identified, it can quickly transmit to others and can make condition worse, because severe cases also they have identified pneumonia, severe cases.
Right.
So because of that, I think we have to respond to early, for early detection of cases and quickly isolate them. And if there are any close contacts, quarantine. Quarantine means they don't have any signs and symptoms, but we have to keep them under surveillance for 2 weeks.
For 2 weeks?
2 weeks, because 2 weeks means there is a period of, we call the incubation period.
Okay.
This incubation period has been identified, varies from 2 days to 10 days.
Okay.
10 to 12 days for this coronavirus, new coronavirus. Because of that, our country, we have identified 2 weeks, 14 days under surveillance. For these children also, we have already identified the system to keep them under surveillance for 2 weeks.
Right. So, Doctor, authorities in the country have set up, or the president in the country had set up an action committee to respond to this virus. Of course, technical advice comes from the epidemiology unit of the Ministry of Health. Now, while I was reading up on this story, a lot of international countries had issued travel advisories, not necessarily a travel ban, but they had requested their citizens to avoid traveling to China unless absolutely necessary, or avoid traveling to a few countries that have reported cases of coronavirus. Has there been any travel advisory as such issued by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or any recommendation by the Health Ministry for such a measure to be taken?
So far, exact travel advisory has not been issued.
Okay.
But I think people should adhere to unnecessarily, not to have leisure tours unnecessarily during this period to any of the countries, I think.
To any country, not any specifically
country.
China?
China, because it has been reported from other countries as well. So initially we saw this virus started in December and initially very slowly progressing.
Okay.
We saw that some lag period.
Right.
And now very recently, within 2 to 3 weeks, there is a very high number of cases reported and unexpected numbers. So we don't know from other countries also. Now, initial period reported one to two cases from some other countries, but we don't know what will happen in next two to 3 weeks time. So it is better to adhere limited travel during this time until this epidemic subside. So people are leisurely traveling because of the free international travel. People try to organize some trips to other countries. So I think this is not the time. Better limit these international travels, unnecessary travels. Even within the country, I think the unnecessary gatherings, better stop unnecessary gatherings until this condition subside.
Okay. But also, Doctor, when it comes to the response of the Sri Lankan health authorities to this coronavirus, what is your main focus?
Main focus is the early identification of cases.
Okay.
Early identification, isolation them and treat them. So that is the main focus at the moment. So we are, throughout the country, we have implemented the surveillance. That is how we have identified a lot of cases, suspected cases, I mean.
Right.
So far we are working well during this period in identifying cases and implementing the surveillance activities. And also the Medical Research Institute has established quickly the coronavirus detection test. So it has greatly contributed for us to make the confirmation. Otherwise, during the patient handling and everything, we don't know whether these cases are confirmed cases or not. But it is a very good thing that they have made their big effort in establishing the test in the country.
Doctor, we're in the final few minutes of our show, but I'd like to direct your attention to one of the headline stories on one of the national newspapers this morning, and that's the fact that the Government Medical Officers Association says that the IDH lacks quarantine rooms or an adequate number of quarantine rooms to deal with this situation. Is this true, and if so, what are the measures that are being taken?
The thing is, IDH hospital has been identified as the quarantine place in our national preparedness plan for any emergency. But because of this situation, it is not only IDH, we have identified 12 hospitals throughout the country for this quarantine. So advices have been given yesterday to all the directorates of these hospitals, and it will be continuing during this week for strengthening all the facilities in these institutions. Personal protective equipments have been distributed, and the activities are still ongoing for strengthening these other 11 hospitals as well.
Okay. Also, Doctor, the World Health Organization, of course, is closely also monitoring the situation. Has there been any ground involvement with the World Health Organization? Has there been any communication with Sri Lankan authorities in the control of this virus?
You mean the country counterparts?
Yes.
Yes. We are closely working with the WHO, World Health Organization. So for the moment, we have the personal protective equipments, but we have asked them to help us in providing us with supplies for any emergencies. So they are working with us.
Also, Doctor, regarding these protective equipment that you said, and you also mentioned these face masks and all that. When these items are used in these hospitals, of course, there is also a risk of this virus spreading when they are being disposed. When these items are being disposed, are the health authorities also focusing on proper disposal of these items?
Yes, all the hospitals, they are doing the proper disposal system.
There is already a procedure.
Yes.
Right. Doctor, we're in the final few minutes of our show, as I mentioned before. But before we leave, I'd like to give you an opportunity to just give a roundup of the advice that the general public of this country should adhere to when we face this virus. Of course, one case has been reported in the country, and it's imperative and important that the general public is aware of the true situation and what they should exactly do without relying on misinformation that might be circulated on social media and other platforms.
Okay. First advice is to adhere to the scientific or the Ministry of Health official announcements. So that is the main thing. So whatever circulated misinformation, you should not believe that. Adhere to the Ministry of Health official announcement. That is the first thing. And adhere to preventive measures. First thing is frequent hand washing and not to touch your face and mouth or the eyes repeatedly, and cover your sneeze and cough properly as we have advised already, and stop frequent travels, unnecessary frequent travels. Unnecessary travels means the foreign tours as well as even within the country, frequent gatherings, unnecessary gatherings for your leisure times. So you can limit them during this outbreak situation until, and if you have any signs and symptoms, or if you know any suspected case with the mainly with the travel history to any other country or close contact with the patient with signs and symptoms, suspected or confirmed case. In that situation, inform them to the health authorities. Your closest medical officer of health or a hospital, closest hospital. So then the surveillance system will detect them and do the needful. So that those are the main basic advices, I would say.
Thank you very much, Dr. Deepa Gamage, consultant epidemiologist at the Ministry of Health, for joining us this morning and taking time off your busy schedule. Of course, with the current situation, I believe you must be extremely busy. So thank you very much, Doctor, for showing up on this show and educating the general public on the measures that should be taken in these very decisive times. Thank you very much to all our viewers out there for tuning in. Of course, you heard the advice from Dr. Deepa Gamage herself. Please do well to adhere to it, because the entire fate of the country depends on it, on how we control the spread of this virus in Sri Lanka. And I believe if the response of the general public is adequate and proper, and if they do adhere to the guidelines of the Ministry of Health, we wouldn't have too much of a problem in controlling this virus.
Yes, definitely.
And the general public need not be scared for no reason.
There should not be unnecessary panic situation, but we will inform as the situation we identify progresses, and any advices to be given, Ministry of Health will give the advices to the general public. You have to adhere to the Ministry of Health advices.
And not anyone else.
Not to adhere to the misinformation circulated through
social media. Thank you very much once again to all our viewers out there. And that's a wrap of Newsline for today. Thank you very much for watching. Until we meet next time, take care and God bless.
News First.